Hello students, welcome to the next lecture on Indian writing in English, key texts. We have been discussing writing between 1857 and 1920. Now, we have looked at the major poets and poetry that is being produced in this particular period, and in this lecture we will be looking at the prose and fiction and drama that is produced during this period. It is important to note that both historical, political, and religious cultural prose were the dominant kind of prose writings in this period. Some of the notable names who were writing prose during this period are Dadabhai Nauroji, M.G. Ranade or Rishi Ranade, who's titled the father of Indian economics for his essays in Indian economics. He was a man with a wide variety of an encyclopedic interest, but he is most notable for his contribution to the field of economics. And then there is Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who or Lokmanya Tilak, one member of the trio known as Lal Bal Pal, and Bal Gangadhar Tilak is known for his fiery speeches and revolutionary zeal. Gopal Krishna Gokhale is also somebody who is known as an outstanding speaker. He was a disciple of Ranade, and Mahatma Gandhi acknowledges Gopal Krishna Gokhale as his political guru. These are the significant figures in Bombay. In Bengal, we have Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who wrote several essays, Ramesh Chandra Dutt, who formulated the idea of the economics of colonialism, that is, how colonialism impacts the economy of the colonies, and who was also a pioneer in travel writing and literary history. So Ramesh Chandra Dutt, and Surendra Banerjee, who was a powerful orator and one of the founding fathers of the Congress Party, Indian National Congress, and who was also a master of passionate speeches. But Bengali prose writing is not limited to them, but is dominated by this trio. Uh, as a matter of fact, the prose writing of the period is dominated by this Bengali trio. Rabindranath Tagore and Aurobindo are names that we have already looked at as poets, and Tagore's significant poetic prose contributions are combined in are begins with Sadhana, a 1913 series of lectures that he delivered in Harvard University. You have to note that this is also the year in which he received Nobel Prize in Literature. In prose, Rabindranath Tagore talked about Western imperialism and its downfalls, and he posits India, Japan, and West as three poles of moral poles, and he warns Japan of falling into the imperialist trap of the West, and his predictions, proved true in the later half of the century, in the later period of the century, in a few decades, so to speak. And we can see that in prose, Rabindranath Tagore is an internationalist and a humanist, and he preaches universal harmony in his prose that is impassioned and semi-poetic. Then we have Swami Vivekananda, who was born as Narendra Datta. He was a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, after whose passing he established the Ramakrishna mission, and he shot to fame both in West and in India after his famous speech at Parliament of Religions at Chicago on 11 September 1893. He addressed the crowd very famously as "My Sisters and Brothers of America," and his ideas in his prose writings were to bring the true essence of Hinduism to the West, as well as to uplift Indians from the quagmire that they find themselves in 20th century, the kind of a moral degradation that they find themselves in, and Vivekananda wanted to uplift the masses of India. He preached again the essential unity of all religions. He propounded that Advaita was India's one true religion. Advaita in its purest form, non-duality philosophy in its purest form, is the one true religion of Indian masses. And his writings were based on sound scholarship, logical and precise arguments, and his delivery was almost always athletic and forceful in style. He is notable for his apt use of parables and scientific analogies. Sri Aurobindo is different from Rabindranath Tagore and Vivekananda in the sense that his prose writings are mostly writings and not speeches, but he has a varied mass of prose writing. Most of it was published in Arya, a monthly that he founded and ran from 1914 to 1921. And while he was in Pondicherry, he wrote about religious and metaphysical issues, social, cultural, and political issues, and he also wrote some literary criticism. The crowning glory of his prose writing is The Life Divine, in which he argued that man's highest aim is the realization of divine within oneself and also the realization of God within and without. His literary criticism combines Indian aesthetic with European critical traditions and thus is very path-breaking in its own ways. Then we move on to a few more minor figures of prose writers. In North India, there were Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya, Motilal Nehru, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Syed Ajmal Khan, most of them writing political prose and some cultural prose as well. In South India, we have Maharaja Sir Ramavarma of Travancore, Sri S. Subramania Iyer, and V. S. Srinivasa Shastri, who was a notable biographer. Sarojini Naidu is a noted orator, distinctly known for her bardic quality of speech. You might wonder why Naidu is being considered among the South Indians, but after her marriage, she moved from Bengal and settled in Deccan. So she is counted among the South Indians in terms of prose writing. And finally, Ananda Kentish Kumaraswamy, an Indo-Sinhalese scholar, is noted for his art criticism. He is a Sinhalese writer. He is originally from Sri Lanka, but is of Indo-Sinhalese origin, and he is a scholar notable for art criticism and a name to remember. Then we move on to the drama of the period, and you should not be surprised to see names of Aurobindo and Tagore coming up again. These are the three significant names of three significant figures of drama writing in this period. Drama was not flourishing in by any means. In Indian English writing, drama never completely takes off. There are moments of glory, but there is no take off in terms of drama in Indian writing in English. So Sri Aurobindo's dramatic writings were mostly bogged down by his obsession with Elizabethan drama. He could never throw off the yoke of Shakespeare. He wrote about a variety of themes. He wrote about his themes were mainly human evolution, idea of human evolution, and also how love can overcome the forces of evil and conflict. But uh, even when he is writing about ancient Greek or contemporary India, medieval India, whatever his setting and time and setting were, his characters were all Shakespearean in nature, even when they are wearing Indian garbs. So that was one of Aurobindo's major failures. But Rabindranath Tagore managed to write a bit more sophisticated and nuanced plays in English. But again, one thing to note is Tagore did not write these plays in English. He translated them from his original Bengali. His plays are of two types, thesis plays and psychological plays. And he is notable for his compact and neat structure, which he achieves by uh, by crucially cutting down while he is translating by rigorous condensation while he is translating his plays from Bengali to English. And his characters were symbolic and allegorical, and he almost always set them in non-realistic settings, say in a fable, in a futuristic kind of setting, in a mythological setting, and even then, all his characters and all his plays were firmly rooted in Indian ethos. Finally, Harindranath Chattopadhyaya is another dramatist of the period. He attempted to combine symbolism and realism, but it was an uncomfortable merger, and he fails to create living characters owing to wooden writing of characters, an air of artificiality in his plays, and also long and propagandistic speeches that were incorporated into his plays. To take a final look at this period, we have to take a look at fiction that is written in this period. You have to note that fiction is, even though fiction becomes Indian English fiction becomes Indian English writing's face in the world in later part of the 20th century, Indian English fiction is the last to arrive in Indian English literary scene. Very few uh, prose writings in the 19th century. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's Rajmohan's Wife is the first and most significant prose piece which is written in the 19th century, but there is no other novelist of any sizable output. Most novels that were written were crude reproductions of 18th century British fiction modeled around Defoe, Fielding, or Scott. But something positive and significant to note is the early arrival of female novelists. Novel has always been um, a form that a genre that was attractive to women. Novel, even British novel, European novel survives due to a wide variety of female readership. So women took to novel very easily, even in India, both as readers and writers. But after the turn of century, there are some names to note. Ramesh Chandra Dutt, Sharat Kumar Ghosh, A. Madhavya, T. Ramakrishna Pillai, and Sridhar Jogendra Singh are some fiction writers in the 20th century, early part of 20th century. And finally, Cornelia Sorabji, a Parsi woman, was the first Indian English short story writer with any sort of considerable literary output. She wrote about the Parsi life in India and a general life in India. This concludes our discussions on Indian English writings during the period of 1857 to 1920. In the next lecture onwards, we will be looking at writings by Indians uh, during the nationalistic struggle, the peak of nationalist struggle, with the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi on the scene, how it changes the nature of Indian English writing, and how Gandhi impacted the way in which Indian English writers approach their writing, and how it becomes an instrumental part of the Indian freedom struggle. So, thank you.